My name is Ana Konder, and I'm the Director of Showroom One. We are a London-based accessory-only showroom, and I have been asked to give this quick talk about wholesale agents and specifically to brands, how to find the wholesale agent, how to best optimize the wholesale agent, and the partnership between the brand, the product, and the wholesale. So just for me to know, are you mostly brands or designers? Yes? Starting, all based in the UK? Or looking to be placed in the UK, right? Okay. So we, as I said, we work mainly with accessories, but I don't think that the work changes much if you're selling shoes, if you're selling clothing. It's basically the same approach, I would think. We specialize in the UK. We deal with Wales, we deal with Scotland, we deal with England, and we nowadays do very little in terms of international placement. But we have a very big reach in terms of UK retailers. We deal with several independent boutiques, the vast majority of the online retailers, and the department stores as well. We have in the past and present helped place brands like Jennifer Lopez handbags, Christian Lacroix handbags, you name it, quite a few. So I'm following here what I have been asked to cover, but please feel free to interrupt me if you want and ask questions if you want, so we can make this a bit more, interesting and answer the questions that you really have. So the first thing I was asked to explain is, how do you actually find an agent, which is not the easiest thing in the world, funny enough. You don't have an association for wholesale agents. You don't have a listing from the UKTI to give you a guidance on that kind of, how to find your agent. It's really word of mouth. It's really through searching the websites. It's really through coming to exhibitions like Pure and finding agents like me with stands here. We have one upstairs on the premium accessories. Researching your competitors, researching all the brands that have wholesale agents, and then getting references and finding one that will like to take your brand on board. So there isn't a listing as such of a place that you can go and search for, agents in the UK, for example. If you Google that, you'll never find it. So I'm afraid you have to do some homework by looking at your competition and by coming to shows like this and finding who sells what. For us, we have been in business for almost 10 years. We advertise our showroom in a guide called Modem, which is based in Paris. But they have this guide that covers all the brands, international brands, all the showrooms international, all the best exhibitions around the world. So they run this trade guide that they distribute in several exhibitions and also online. So we have been found by many brands through this Modem online, actually. Just by searching Modem, they have a very big reach. People have found us there, advertising there, and then they came to us. So Modem has always been a good, very useful guide, and a guide that's also useful for buyers. So if you have a product and you advertise there, it's very likely that people come across your name. So for us, it is the best and the only way that we, if there is a listing as such, that we are represented. Aside from that, as I said, it's mainly about, searching online or searching for competition. In terms of who is the right agent for my product, or, I always have a question when we see a new brand that approaches us, especially the startups. Do you really need an agent? Because in some case, to have an agent is a cost that you have to incur. We, as an agent, for example, we charge fees to represent. Aside from that, you have to have your set of samples. Aside from that, there are several costs involved into hiring an agent to represent your brand, your product. If you are a startup, I think the first question I would pose is, do you really need one, or would you be much better off starting by yourself in an exhibition like Pure, for example, and then gauging the interest of the market in your product to take then the next step to have an agent to spread, your product to a higher or to a, to the whole extent of that territory. Is your product or your brand positioned in terms of price, in terms of look, in terms of quality that this market wants to absorb? I think that's the first thing that you have to see. Are you too niche for the market? If you're too niche, you might not need an agent. You might be, better off doing the first steps of this process yourself. But so you have to gauge the benefits of doing exhibitions. We as an agent also participate in exhibitions. We don't bring all the products that we have to an exhibition. To an exhibition like Pure, we bring, out of the 14 that we have, we only bring 6 because they are commercial and this is a commercial exhibition. So the luxury ones we don't bring to Pure. We handle them in our showroom where we see our clients directly. The first question is to see, is the agent reaching the market that's right for your product? I think that's a question that very often the brands don't ask, and if the agent is honest, they will tell you. Otherwise, they will take your product and might come with a result that's well beyond what you would expect. So I think you always have to do your homework a little bit and understand your product better than any agent would. The job of the agent is to understand about the market, and then of course guide you on how to get placed. If you want to decide, if you want to gauge the agent's real reach, I think you have to see, number one, what's the brand portfolio that this agent has. Is the portfolio mixed? Is it accessories only? Is it commercial and luxury? What exactly, what kind of products that they already have to see if your fits. And if your product is in competition, direct competition with something else that they might already have, they might, I wouldn't take it if it was my choice. But if you want to gauge, I think that's the best way of doing it. First of all, brand portfolio. What are the successful placements that you have achieved as a wholesaler to the brands that you represent? Where have you placed the products past and present? What's your client list in terms of retailers? Who do you really reach? Do you reach the whole country? Do you reach a specific, target retailers? Do you reach the online retailers? Do you reach everyone? So I think questions that are very relevant that you have to ask, and easily proven by a tracking record of the brands that you have placed in these retailers. So an agent should be able to give you this idea when you are trying to decide if the agent is right for your product or not. Also, the most important thing is to see an agent in terms of long-term partnership. The agent might be have a very, extensive list of clients, have a very large reach, or of where they place products. But are your expectations of your product real to the potential of that market? You have to be able to see that. Is your product too niche? What is your real expectation? Because, for instance, any brand would come to us and say, well, I make these bags and they are beautiful and they are real leather and this is stunning, my design is amazing, I want to be at Harrods. Normally, it's the first thing. I want to be at Harrods, I want to be in Selfridges. The Harrods and Selfridges deal with a certain type of brands. Can you be placed in a Harrods and Selfridges? You can. Any product can be placed anywhere. But is it likely? No. For you to be placed at a very big department store, let it be Harrods for the exclusive products, let it be House of Fraser for the more commercial, let it be more niche for Fenwick, for example, or Liberty. They have to have the space, number one. So they have to like your product, but they have to have the space, because if they don't have the space, you're never going to get there. So you must be able to see and discuss with your agent what are the real expectations for the product that you have in hand. And then you know exactly how much of the market you could aim for, and then it's the job of the wholesaler to go after that slice. But how much of it is something that you can try to decide and target before you start working, and then you organize that in a manner that you go after that. You have to know, are you a niche brand? And then you have to see how much of that market can you get. Are you a commercial line? If you're a commercial line, your product has a certain level of price, and you can reach. You must aim for a much bigger number of retailers to make volume for your line if you're commercial. Obviously, you have strategic placements that you can always aim for as well. We have brands that come to us and say, listen, we know that the share of the UK market for our product is small, but we need one good placement because that is going to be important for our placements internationally. So that's our job. We want to get that one good retailer so they can use that for the international market. Or we need numbers, and I need as many retailers. It doesn't matter how much volume we are going to get. I just need to spread the product throughout the UK so that I can put on my portfolio that we have 200 stockists. So it's important to understand exactly where you are placed, where you're positioned, so that you can decide what slice of this market you can get. And of course, there are risks. There is no magic. There is timing, and there is contacts, but there is no magic. So the product has to have a relevance to that market. It has to be able to be competitive. It has to have a price positioning with a quality positioning, with to a certain to the clients that the showroom or the agent can reach, and that's the job of the agent. But there are risks. It might be that the time is wrong. It might be that the space for your product is not available in that season, and that's going back to the point of always having to, if you want an agent, look into a long-term relationship, because it does take time to get from zero to somewhere. But there are risks. We have, we never had an experience of having a zero placement with the client, but it could be possible that you target a certain slice of that market and it just doesn't happen. So there are risks involved into working with agents, into having a standard and exhibition. There are always risks involved. How do you maximize then your relationship, your partnership between agent and brand? It's very important that you understand how the market works. The UK market works in a way, the Italian market works in another way, American market works in a different way. There are different selling periods for each season in different markets. How many collections a season do you provide? In the UK, normally companies come with 2 collections, one winter, one summer. But if you go to Europe, or if you go to America, they normally work with 4. You have the cruise lines and you have the pre-Christmas collections. And I always find that if you have a little bit more to offer after the season is finished, you end up getting a little bit more, a chunk of that budget that hasn't been completely spent. So we always advise, if you can, to work with 4 collections a year, two per season. Even if you break on purpose the structure of your offer so that you can have that. So now we are doing autumn-winter, for example, we're selling autumn-winter 15 with the accessories that we have. But in April, when the season is finished, we're going to go back to all our clients again with a pre-Christmas. So it's a 25% amount of the chunk of the first autumn-winter, but we have something else to offer. A lot of clients want something, or some newness for Christmas. They would be happy to spend a little bit more for that Christmas period and also for the cruise in regards to the summer. And we tend to really maximize the sales when we have that structure on collection. So this is something that normally a startup wouldn't have. But if I can advise, I would advise that you look into it. then of course that will bring you to production problems, because if you have 4 collections, you need to, you have to plan for your production. Some companies have to finish selling earlier because they have to put products in production. You have to be aware of how long does an agent have to be able to work with your product so that you can manufacture on time and deliver when the retailer needs your product to be ready. So that is for production schedule, that is the sample schedule, so that we can start as early as possible in the season as well, not to miss any contacts. Once you start with your appointments, once you start with an exhibition, there's no going back to people that you have already seen. It's very unlikely that a buyer comes twice to a showroom. They come, they see, they buy, and that's that. So if your samples are not ready on time, you are losing, and that is your side of the equation that you have to be aware of when you work with any agents around the world. The agency infrastructure is also important. We deal with a lot of mid-range commercial lines. So we have, aside from showroom, we take product to exhibitions when we have a very extensive road sales program as well. So when the season reaches middle point, we take several of the more commercial lines into the road, and we do a door-to-door approach, and we visit clients in the far away corners of Wales, of Scotland, people that normally wouldn't come to an exhibition, or they wouldn't come to this exhibition where we are, or they wouldn't come to London because they find that in London everything is too expensive. If you're dealing with a commercial line that needs numbers, you need to be able to reach as many retailers, including the independent retailers, as possible. So that is part of our infrastructure, and this is something that you also, have to decide with your agents as well. Are they capable of covering that part of the market that you are aiming for? Again, clear goals and versus expectations. Set up your targets well before the agent starts working, and discuss if they are viable or not, so that you can, what you were expecting. You plan for what you can reach, and you can also have this conversation once the season is finished. If the targets are not achieved, what was the problem? Was it the agent's reach that wasn't enough? Well, it's your product. Is it the price of the product? It's the style of the product? But you have to discuss this beforehand so that you know exactly where you are heading. Price point as well. Media presence and brand awareness, of course, all of those are points that are going to affect the successful placement of any brand, of any product. We are not a PR agency, we are wholesalers. So we don't depend on PR or media presence to be able to successfully place a product. It helps, yes. And you have to be aware that obviously if your products or your brand is well known, you are far more likely to reach a bigger chunk of the market. But that's not necessarily a need when you are hiring a wholesaler. A wholesaler cannot come to you and say, well, unless you invest in magazines, you'll never be able to place your product. That's not true. You have to be able to place the product regardless. It's just to aim for the right retailer and know how much that will affect you against your competitors. If you are competing direct line with brands that have that awareness, then of course you have a more limited reach. In terms of key accounts, and when I say key accounts, the accounts that are going to give a name to your product. It could be talking about online, ASOS, Topshop. You're talking about department stores. Whoever is a key account for that product, you have to define the targets well in advance as well. We try, for any new brand that we get, we're trying to get at least one good key account for the first season that they are with us. And to aim for more than that one key account, it's really something almost impossible to achieve. Aside from the key account, we go after building up numbers. So if you know that, of course, to get into a key account is the most difficult thing because they are, the ones who sell the top brands and they have a limitation on space for you to get in. Someone is leaving. You have to build up your numbers so that your investment is returned to you. and you start building your own portfolio in that territory. So we go after smaller stockists to start with, get to as many as possible. Online opportunities, because online don't have a problem with shelving. They can stock your product without having the physical problem that any other store, department store would have. And also looking to SOR deals. Every brand is, or the smaller ones, are always slightly worried about giving a stock on consignment. But sometimes that's the best way, as long as your agent can take care of that, of getting your numbers up where you want to be. When is the SOR a good deal? If you're talking about accounts that would give you a name, that would help spread the awareness of your brand, I would advise that yes, that is a good opportunity to get. We do that even with larger brands in order to get that space when there is an opportunity. You should do your homework beforehand. You know, what is the market size for your brand, the consumer behavior of that market as well. You know, if you're talking about England, London is very different from the rest of the countryside, for example, where you have people that opt for quality more than fashion. You have a lot of more slightly traditional way of dressing. So you have to know that the strategy has to be different for the market or whatever market that you are trying to achieve. What is your competition? You know, for something identical, it's very unlikely that you're coming with something that hasn't been done before. You know, you might have your identity as a brand, but you're selling a handbag, you're selling a scarf, you're selling a dress, you're selling a shoe, and there's always competition on the same level. Who are your competitors? Where are they placed? How much do they charge for the product? And then you know exactly where, you know, what you can aim and what you can achieve. And price positioning, which is so important, is, you know, nowadays, it's been important for at least the past 5 years. You know, when you talk about commercial lines, you have a huge competition with the Chinese product. So you want, you know, retailers want quality, but they want to pay a competitive price. So it's, of course, it puts a burden on any other designer brand that comes to the market that cannot afford that lower price because they have a smaller production line. So you really have to see, in terms of price, where exactly you are positioned so that you can aim for the correct retailers and work with the right showroom for you. So just to summarize, I think that successful placement of, you know, any product can be placed and any brand can be built as long as you, you know, work through long-term partnerships. You have the time for that and the financial investment as well. It doesn't come without that. And I think success, it has to be measured by the achievement of your full potential, or, you know, large or small, whatever the niche is. The minute that you get the whole amount of it, it can be small to some, much larger to others. This is what I would see as success.